Why everyone's tuned in this week. They want to know, because we spoke about you last week, what happened between you and White Yardie. In your own words, we just want a quick summary of what went down and also why you didn't talk on the show.
Okay, cool. So the quick timeline is sometime around April of this year, volcano in St. Vincent erupted. And this obviously led to a natural disaster from where there were evacuees, and there was a lot of support required for St. Vincent. Now, some of my family are from St. Vincent, obviously because it's very adjacent to Grenada. And so within my family WhatsApp group, all of this information came up. And so I, in turn, went and bought supplies for macro. So I got a macro card, not bragging, just saying. Couple supplies. And then another comic friend of mine, Chrissy Charles, who his family is also from St. Vincent, were also running a relief effort. So I donated that way as well. And I left it at that because, you know, as I'm sure you're all aware, it's very bad form for you to talk about your donations or your charitable work, because the idea of altruism is that you don't do it for attention. So I did what needed to be done. Also, and I want to give everyone this kind of context so you can understand my mindset, is that, like, following a pandemic, it would be remiss of me to ask anybody, particularly anybody of Caribbean descent, to part with their money when we are already predisposed to have the most risk of contracting COVID, would have had lost loved ones, and also because we are so overrepresented in skilled labor and menial jobs, it would probably be a bit rich for me to go on my social media and be like, you don't need to start donating money because you're from the small islands and what have you. So that was that. Then a video finds its way in front of me where White Yardie had apparently also been involved in a relief effort and decided to go in his car and rant expletives about how angry he is about the actions of, well, just Black Caribbean comedians, not Black Caribbean athletes or Black Caribbean entertainers or business owners or industrialists or members of the clergy, just 3 Black comedians who incidentally all were on TV in the same year. So I had done Famous the year previous, which came out in the start of 2021. Judy Love was involved on Loose Women and Mo being on his show, which is weird because he was also alongside Big Nasty, who was not mentioned in this rant. And so White Yardie took it upon himself to, before messaging me or having the conversation or inquiring into if I'd be interested in a relief effort, decided to go into his car, go on to his Instagram live and call out myself and Judy Love and Mo and question whether we are actual Caribbeans and our heritage and if we care about what happens in the Caribbean. Going further to cite the fact that I also had stories on my social media about Baghdad and Japan and the Caribbean and the Black Lives Matter, but not St. Vincent, even though people in St. Vincent are Black. Although I imagine, like in Jamaica, some of them are white too, but they weren't mentioned. And so after this, I was contacted by several members of the Blacks comedy community who assured me that they are more than aware of my work and that there's no need to respond to this. Following some kind of backlash that White Yardie got, he went on his former podcast, Chalk and Cheese, which he used to have with Kane Brown, the comedian, Dizzle, and I believe Christopher Savage, and decided to double down despite the fact that he had the facts that I had donated, and apologized to Judy and decided to double down and again, I mean, for lack of a better word, falsely accuse me of not representing my community and not using my platform to discuss Caribbean issues, which I think if anybody's been aware of my work over the course of a decade, I probably would argue that I'm maybe one of the most vocal Black comedians in this entire country when it comes to issues that affect my community, and have had no qualms about speaking to people in the public eye, which is why I am blocked by Piers Morgan, among many people, and Alan Sugar. And I got blocked by Piers Morgan because I said to him, I don't know why you're saying we, because you don't care about Anthony Joshua when he loses, he's Nigerian. And then told Alan Sugar he can fuck himself after he likened the Senegalese football team to selling bags on a beach. Yeah. So, yeah, and just, you know, like I said, most people who know my work will know that what I do. So because he decided to double down in protest and disgust, his friends, Kane Brown and Dizzle and Christopher Savage, they all walked off his show. So they ended the podcast because they weren't prepared to continue to allow him to lie because of the comments he was making about me. So that's the reason why Chalk and Cheese is no longer a podcast. And you can, anyone who doesn't believe me can check the timelines. That podcast stopped in April when he decided to open his mouth and tell lies about me. Okay. But, you know, given that he is somewhat, I guess, so given that he put this on his social media, which also I need to point out as well, was quite strange that he would call me out because he didn't at me. So he didn't at me. He just mentioned my name and it found my way through my family and this clip going viral. So he didn't actually at me to actually draw my attention to the fact that he thinks I should support my community. Didn't message me in my DMs or send me any messages or message my management or any representation to ask about it. Just decided to get in his car and presume because he hadn't heard anything. But I just think it's very strange that the only people he called out are the other 3 Black British comedians that are on TV. Anyway, I digress. So naturally, he's obviously rabble-roused his fans and with his false implications. And then I did find myself added by fans who were like, you don't do this and you people need to do better for the community. To which I responded, if you feel I don't represent my community, you can suck your mum and so can White Yardie. Again, this is all in April. I want everyone to know this is all in April 2021, 6 months ago. So then he came into my DMs and went, suck your mum, suck my mum, yeah? And I said, no, let me rephrase that. Suck your white mum, because you're a white man. And even though you might be a Jamaican, you are still a white man. And my life and your life are very different where so far it goes in this country. So by that token, you are in no position to tell me how I need to conduct or express myself as a Caribbean, because you are a white man living in the United Kingdom. And at no point in my career have I ever questioned your Jamaican heritage or identity, nor told you how you should conduct yourself. And I would ask for at least have the respect to either check your facts or at least leave my name out of your mouth, because I have never took it upon myself to tell any other human being or artist how they should conduct themselves in this industry, despite whatever misgivings I may have. I don't agree with what everybody does, but it's not my place to tell anybody, particularly after a pandemic where most live performers have not been able to work for the course of 18 months. So that was my position. You can suck your white mum, because however you feel, you're still a white man and I'm a Black Caribbean. So our lives are not the same. That was in April. Fast forward to a few weeks ago when I appeared on the Apologetic show, and the producers told me that White Yardie would also be appearing on the show. So I made a point of principle and told them why I have no time for this guy, and I'm not particularly fond of him as a person because of him disrespecting me without any warrant or provocation. So when the show began, as a regular panelist, I sat in the show. White Yardie knew where I was. He stayed upstairs the whole time. The address is Miller Garage. It's in Clapton. It's E5. You can ask anybody that was there. You can speak to Cardiff Productions, because that's the production company that made it, and they can tell you. He stood upstairs the entire time. There was no point at which he came face to face to me to question or reprimand me for my comments about telling him to suck his mum. So when he came onto the show for the segment, I sat by myself, and Zizi turned and said, is there going to be an issue? To which he responded, I'm a grown man. So I rolled my eyes and continued to say nothing. So the section happened, I said nothing, and anybody who's watched the show will know when I'm asked about his heritage, I say, I do agree with White Yardie. He is Jamaican, but your nationality is very different to your racial identity. And I said, it's interesting that you can be referred to as a White Yardie and you won't be questioned, and yet Black people who have been born and raised here will still be in a situation whereby they still have to preface their national identity by saying they are Black Caribbean before they say they're Black British. And if you don't believe me, anybody, you can look at any fucking application form and that will tell you where you stand. So that's why I remain silent. So after the show, and also during the show, before the filming began, White Yardie is a longtime friend of Yinka Bokany and her family. So through the merit of him being involved in entertainment and her being involved in entertainment, she's known him for 15 years. So Yinka actually is sure that he's a friend, and apparently he's called ZZ too. What followed that was a doctored clip that was released online, which inferred that everybody was attacking White Yardie for his heritage. I don't know how I ended up, because I didn't say a word during the entire time he was there. And that resulted in backlash, and his fans and other equally angry white working class white people and Jamaicans doxying Nicholas, who appeared on the show, as well as Yinka and Zizi. And strangely, at no point did White Yardie correct his fans or address anybody and let them know that Yinka was his friend and a family friend of over 15 years. And despite his Caribbean heritage, was happy to watch 2 young Black women get lambasted on the internet for something that didn't even happen. And then I sat there saying nothing, and one of his fans commented, why is he not saying anything? To which Persian rapper from Margate, Mike Righteous, replied, because I must be a pussyhole. To which I replied, I know that a backpack rapper from Margate of Persian origin isn't talking about my Caribbean heritage. And that ended there. And then cue the last week or so, where White Yardie went on to create a fake image or a photoshopped image of the DMs that we had in April, and lied to his fans and to the rest of social media implying as if that was an exchange that took place after the show, when what had happened was it happened back in April. And White Yardie has blocked me, and so I'm not able to get all of the DMs to prove that the exchange had also been courteous prior to me being on TV as far back as 2018, when I'd approached him about appearing on something for the BBC. But the point is that he basically doctored these messages and made it appear as if I had messaged him directly after the show, as opposed to saying nothing to him at the time, when in fact, the only correspondence I'd had with him ended in April. So essentially, what you've seen over the last week is the result of a man who has created a false video about Yinka and Zizi attacking him about his Jamaican heritage, where I said nothing, which some of his fans still haven't managed to work out, that I did not talk nor question his Jamaican heritage. So once again, if you are one of these people, watch the episode, you fucking idiot, and then come back to me, because half of you didn't watch the episode. And so yeah. The last week of mine has been people attacking me for being like, how dare you say that someone isn't of Jamaican heritage because they're white? And I was like, I didn't say that. And they're like, how fucking dare you? And I'm like, but I didn't say it. I didn't say a word on the show. And then a lot of people have tried to give me the moral conundrum of, if someone said suck your black mum, what would happen then? And I'd be like, it would be just another day being a black person in England. Have we forgotten the Euros already?
Exactly.
What's going on? What's going on here? The Prime Minister of this country called black people pickaninnies, and you're worried about me saying suck my black this and suck my black that? Also, I'm more than aware that if he is Jamaican, which I'm sure he definitely is, that is not a problem and not something I would challenge. But it is himself that has called himself White Yardie. So why are you offended if I say suck your white mum when that is factual? Because you never called yourself a Yardie or yourself Harry the Jamaican or Harry George or Harry the Yardie. You said White Yardie. So you are aware that putting white in front of it gives it a distinction, because any Jamaican who has lived in this country will know that the term Yardie has never been associated with something positive. And in fact, a lot of anti-black legislation such as Operation Trident and Stop and Search are all predicated on these terms like Yardie. And if anybody had paid attention to mainstream media back in the early noughties and the late 90s, even black men involved in 419 scams would be referred to as Yardies.
Yep.
So that's what's happened basically. So I'm more than prepared to field any questions anybody may have, including the chat.